Howdy, howdy, it's History with Stevens.
Steven.
History with Stevens.
Steven.
Here we are, the first ever content video for History with Stevens. This episode will be about Chapter 1 in your book. The title of this chapter is titled The First Americans. Throughout this episode, I'll be referring to the first Americans as Native Americans. Make sure that you understand we're talking about the same group of people. The essential question for this chapter is, how did the first Americans adapt to their environment? That's going to be the question you're going to need to be able to answer by the end of the chapter with specific examples. So let's begin. Before we talk about how Native Americans adapted to their environment, we should talk about how they got here. 30,000 years ago, the Ice Age began. Temperatures began to drop. When temperatures dropped, so did the ocean levels. And when ocean levels dropped, a land bridge was exposed between Siberia and Alaska. This land bridge became known as Beringia. During this era, people in Siberia followed and hunted mammoths and other large mammals. During the Ice Age, the mammoths crossed Beringia and some of the people followed them into North America. When the Ice Age ended, the sea levels rose again and the land bridge was no longer exposed. The mammoths started to die out and Native Americans had to find new resources. Over the years, people migrated all over North and South America. Native Americans had to adapt to their environment by using natural resources. Natural resources are useful things that are found in nature. These can include animals like buffaloes, fish, and deer. They can include plants, water, really anything that's found in nature. Different environments call for different adaptations. These different adaptations would eventually lead to people creating distinct cultures. Culture is basically a group of people's way of life. Culture can include food, holidays, beliefs, and customs. While it's impossible to lump all Native American groups together, there are some common themes that we can discuss. One important concept is their view of land ownership. Native Americans didn't believe in the concept of private land ownership. The idea of private land ownership was largely a European idea at the time. Native Americans didn't believe that individuals own land, but they did believe in tribal homelands, would protect their homelands if they felt threatened by other tribes. Native Americans would also adapt or change the environments in order to fit their needs. Native Americans that lived in forested regions would set fires intentionally in order to clear the forest so they'd have room to grow crops. Another example would be the irrigation systems that were created in the American Southwest. Your textbook goes over all the different cultural regions that existed that would later become the United States. And I'm not going to give you an in-depth recap of each group, but I'll go over some of the important ones to remember. Wink. What's that? I'm not supposed to say wink. Oh, I'm supposed to do it. That makes a lot more sense. Let's redo that. Your textbook goes over all the different cultural regions that exist in what would later become the United States. And I'm not going to give you an in-depth recap of each group, but I will go over some of the important ones. The Great Basin region, which is located between the Sierra Nevada and Rocky Mountains, is an extremely difficult place to live. During the summer, the Great Basin would get extremely hot, and it would get extremely cold during the winter. When you combine this with the fact that the Great Basin didn't get a lot of rain, it made it a very difficult place for animals or plants to survive. The Southwest region was also difficult to live in because of the extreme heat in this region. This region is known for mountains, mesas, canyons, and lack of rain. Because of that, very few trees or plants grew in this region. The Native Americans of the Southwest adapted to this challenging environment by making their homes out of sun-baked clay called adobe. They created irrigation systems to provide water for their crops, and they grew crops like corn, beans, and squash. In the final final region we will cover today is the Great Plains region. The Great Plains is a huge, treeless area of flatland. And the one thing to remember about the Great Plain are the buffaloes. The buffaloes were the main natural resource for Native Americans that lived in that region. They were their food source. They used their hides to make clothes, even housing. 8 to 20 buffaloes would be sewn together and fastened around a pole to make a teepee. That's going to conclude this episode of History with Stevens. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, leave a comment in the comments. Peace!